wonderful opinions I trust that said that he is fantastic. So yeah. So I'm pretty excited to see what's in store for us tonight. I think it's going to be a good show. Those of you who this is your first time here, this is an artist cooperative, so you see all this artwork here. It's all local artists who create this work, and they run the shop usually during the week. I just do concerts here in the evenings, and so I run the concerts here. I also do some at my house in Cambridge, and then do the 11 amp Galva music series over there, and some other stuff too. But one of the things that we started this year, we're doing a Sunday concert series that runs every Sunday essentially through the entire year. We started a nonprofit called CROSSROADS Cultural Connections, and that was one of our first things that we decided to do, is that we were going to put on a concert every Sunday essentially, aside from Easter and Mother's Day and things like that. But yeah. So anyway, I really appreciate you guys coming. Jason has all sorts of things for you guys to buy up there, and then if you didn't find it already, or if you didn't already make a donation online, there is a jar that says donations right there at the counter as well. So make sure you put some in there for Jason, so he can continue doing what he does. Yeah. All right, well, I'm going to stop talking. I know you guys didn't come here to see me and listen to me talk, so Jason.
It doesn't matter what we thought in 1993. Everything is bound to change, including you and me. When the dawn is breaking, something will be broke. Are we getting misty-eyed, or are we seeing snow? Mona Lee, Mona Moore, we've been down this road before. Are your demons keeping score or keeping time? Mona Lee, Mona me, there is no place I'd rather be than waiting on you, waiting on a sign. 16 years or 16 months, to me it's all the same. You stand no chance of winning unless you play the game. I've never been the kind to stand outside looking in, but I keep coming back to find that I'm standing here again. Mona Lee, Mona Moore, we've been down this road before. Are your demons keeping score or keeping time? Mona Lee, Mona me, there is no place I'd rather be than waiting on you, waiting on a sign. We're bound to find that now's the time, that time won't wait. If I'm resigned to read your mind, then we could be too late. Mona Lee, Mona Moore, we've been down this road before. Are your demons keeping score or keeping time? Mona Lee, Mona me, there is no place I'd rather be than waiting on you, waiting on a sign. Than waiting on you, waiting on a sign. Yeah, waiting on you, waiting on a sign. Thank you, folks. This song's a true story, every single word. And it was written in the year 2003. Important that you keep that in mind. This isn't Alabama, oh how well I know. I'm in central Germany, where I love to go. And how come I am seeing right in front of me? My Lord, there flies a rebel flag in central Germany. My God, there flies a rebel flag in central Germany. Yep! I was riding peaceful on this train, enjoying the scenery and mellowing my brain, and stuck atop a pretty barn there for all to see. A massive Confederate flag in central Germany. The omnipresent rebel flag in central Germany. Yep! Well, I slink down in my sleep and I search for a disguise. I say, I am Canadian with averted eye. Am I being paranoid? Do they think it's me? Do they think I hung that flag in central Germany? So now I bet you're listening in righteous merry bliss. You're thinking, how will Jason write his way out of this? Well, honestly, folks, I was thinking the same thing, riding that bullet train through Germany at 300 kilometers per hour. And I'd had a good show the night before in Dortmund, Germany, and I was feeling real good. Life was mellow, everything was cool, just sitting there looking at the beautiful Bavarian scenery. And then we kind of climbed over this little ridge, and in the valley was this beautiful Bavarian barn, just all tricked out, you know, just made perfectly with German craftsmanship. And on top of this barn, almost as big as the barn, was this massive Confederate flag in the middle of Germany. And it hit me all to the core, you know. It definitely destroyed the whole mellow vibe I had going. And this song sort of popped out of the sky. I mean, it just went like right through the train car ceiling and into my head and onto my arms and onto the paper. And to this point in the song, it only took like 5 minutes to get to this point. And then I sort of got stuck. Because I knew that, wow, I've got to get this last line perfect. Because this song could go two different directions right now, right here at this little intersection, you know. Go one way with it, it could be a song, you know, you might hear at a Leonard Skinner show. Or go another direction, it might be something that, a song you might hear at a Steve Earle concert. So I gave it a lot of thought, and I think I did it. Here's what I came up with. Well, I reckon I can tell you that Robert E. Lee would not have wished to see his flag in central Germany. I wish I'd never seen that flag in central Germany. Hell, I don't even want to see that flag in Tennessee. Turn it up. Folks. Well, that song doesn't always get cheered for that much. I'm delighted to be here at the Bishop Hill Commons, here in this wonderful historic town, among so many good friends. I think this is kind of like a Western High School alumni night here tonight. So, I'm out, you know, doing shows and stuff. Not a lot, of course, with the stuff going on in the world, but I have a new record out called Rhinestoned, and I'm really proud of it. I think it's my best solo record yet, as a matter of fact. And this song is one of the central points of the record. This is called "The Freedom Rides Weren't Free," and it's about the Freedom Riders. I would imagine most of you know the basics of that story. African American and some northern white college students got on these buses throughout the South in 1961 to challenge the Jim Crow segregation rules. The Supreme Court had struck down the segregated systems that they had in the South for bus for bus riders, but it had never been challenged, so it was still going on in the spring of '61. So the song is sort of about the Nashville connection. I've lived in Nashville for the last 40 years of my life, and this song has a little bit of the Nashville connection to it. Because what happened was this. These Freedom Riders started in Washington, D.C. first, and they were sponsored by the Congress for Racial Equality organization. It was called CORE. And they had these kids, college kids, black and white, get on these buses, and they would sit where they weren't supposed to sit, and they would sit together, and this was supposed to challenge the segregated rules. And initially, nothing happened. They got through Virginia and into Georgia and parts of East Tennessee. They did several routes through the Deep South. But when they got to Alabama, everything changed. It was a radical transformation of the whole rides. In Anniston, Alabama, they were met with a mob of white supremacists who stopped the bus. They barred the door handles, and then someone threw a firebomb into the bus. Miraculously, nobody was killed. A firebomb went into this bus. They finally broke the doors open. They of course, poured out, and they were beaten then, of all things. And after this happened, the CORE organization and the Kennedy administration really pushed the riders to stop. They said, you have to stop this because people are going to get killed. It's just not, we just can't go on protecting you if you continue to do this. So the rides stopped. The Freedom Rides stopped there in Anniston, Alabama. Now in Nashville, there was two black colleges called Meharry and Fisk universities, and these kids had already been really active in the civil rights movement. Nashville, was known as the country music capital of the world, but in 1950s and 1960s, early 60s, it was one of the civil rights centers in our country. And these kids had been doing lunch counter sit-ins and retail boycotts and marches and whatnot, and always practiced nonviolence. There wasn't a single case where these kids would react with violence when they were confronted with violence on a regular basis. Anyway, these kids got heard that the Freedom Rides were canceled. So they met in their little college dorm rooms. And this is a fantastic story. These kids, they got in their little circles, and they were just 18, 19, 20 years old. Most of them, they were the first generation of their families to go to college, so they were risking a lot to get involved in these civil rights movements. Anyway, they got in these circles, and they emptied their pockets, and they emptied their wallets, and they emptied their purses into the center of the rooms, and they counted up how much money they had. And they figured out how many tickets they could buy from Nashville to Birmingham, and then on from Birmingham to New Orleans or to Jackson, Mississippi. And of course, they had a limited amount of money, so they could only take a few. They couldn't take everybody that was in the room, so they took volunteers to see who would get on those buses, knowing they were going to get beaten and probably jailed, maybe killed. It wasn't a question of if that was going to happen. It was when it was going to happen. That was what it was. Every single person in those rooms volunteered. Every one of those kids volunteered. So they got on those buses in the dark of night, got to Birmingham, and believe it or not, it was even worse this time than it was in Anniston. They were met with hundreds of these mobs of angry white people who were beating them, they were spitting on them, they were throwing them in jail. But this time things changed. They didn't back down. They took it, and all of a sudden the national media paid a lot of attention. The three big networks sent crews down to cover it, and then major newspapers covered it. And then everything changed. It got national, international attention. People from all over then came down to get on these bus rides and to show the support of the Freedom Riders. By the end of the summer, the segregated bus system in the American South was dismantled because of the courage of those young college kids. So this year was the anniversary of the rides. So I wrote this song about them. This is called "The Freedom Rides Weren't Free." Time is more forgiving the farther back you look. It's easier to cut some slack to someone from a book. Then somebody smiles and says, well, what's done is done. You wonder what side they took in 1961. Who'd have thought an old bus could be a battleground where Klansmen joined the governor to beat so many down? Just a few brave souls stood against the tide, take their stand for justice and make those freedom rides. The freedom rides weren't free, no, those freedom rides weren't free. The toll was paid in blood and soul south of Tennessee. You can quote your politics or U.S. history. Those who rode those buses, the freedom rides weren't free. Those who rode those buses, the freedom rides weren't free. Yes, I live in good old Nashville, Tennessee, where superstars take selfies and wave at you and me. Where not so long ago some college kids combined their losses, board a bus for Birmingham to face the mobs and bosses. Through fire bombs and beat-ins and jail for everyone, those kids kept up their courage and they never used a gun, or respond in anger, or give what they received. Nonviolence was sacred to all that they believed. The freedom rides weren't free, no, those freedom rides weren't free. The toll was paid in blood and soul south of Tennessee. You can quote your politics or U.S. history. For those who rode those buses, the freedom rides weren't free. For those who rode those buses, the freedom rides weren't free. From Anniston to Birmingham and down through Mississippi, the eyes of time stare back at us like tired ancient hippies. Echoes from those days now you will rarely hear, except from those that were there on either side, so clear. Freedom rides weren't free, no, those freedom rides weren't free. The toll was paid in blood and soul south of Tennessee. You can quote your politics or U.S. history. For those who rode those buses, the freedom rides weren't free. For those who rode those buses, the freedom rides weren't free. For those who rode those buses, the freedom rides weren't free. Thank you, friends. All right, any old fans of Jason and the Scorchers here tonight? All right, cool. I can usually gauge how good the show is going to go by how many Scorcher fans are in the audience. Usually. There we go. Amen. All right. Well, you don't look old enough to be a Scorcher fan. All right, I think I'll do a Scorcher song then. This is off the Fervor album, our first release in 1983. Came out. Then it was called Jason and the Nashville Scorchers. And I know some of you folks actually saw the band in those days, and we were called the Nashville Scorchers. That's right. That's right. This is one of my favorite Scorcher songs, and the song's called Harvest Moon. Before writing this song sort of changed the whole dynamic of the band. You know, up until this song was created, we were sort of just a really loud party band, basically. And what we were doing was we were taking old country classics and punking them out. And that's what we were doing. And we'd go out, and play frat bars and music clubs and stuff around the South and Midwest. And we're gaining an audience just doing that. It was a total gimmick. There wasn't a whole lot of creativity to it, just sing these country songs really loud and really fast. But after a while, we did realize that we've got to write songs, if we're gonna make anything happen in the long term. So started writing some songs, and initially it was me doing most of the writing. And I brought in Harvest Moon, and I mean, most Scorcher fans would consider this one of our finest tracks, but it was met with absolute crickets when I first introduced it. The guys in the band didn't want to do it, and it took some real persuasion I stuck to my guns, and then I wasn't vindicated when we started playing it live. Live, nobody really liked it either. But then we recorded it, and then it changed. Then we put out the record, and people were like, "Oh, wow, maybe this isn't what I'm used to from this band, but this is something that I need to pay attention to." So now it's a lesson in sticking to your guns every now and then, anyway. Harvest moon, shine on down. The chill in the air wakes the ghost of the ground. Northern winds, I hear your voice, but killing frost takes all hope of choice. Harvest song, the wheels are set, the odds are against us, in sin we met. Autumn child, born too soon, soul is chilled underneath that moon. Said a harvest moon, take me down for a while. Said a harvest moon, sicknesses now become style. Crystal day, glory stream. This ain't the way that the movies seem. Love for sale, sin for hire, trade in time for eternal fire. Said a harvest moon, take me down for a while. Said a harvest moon, sicknesses now become style. November girl, your brown eyes see, passion is killing the love in me. Harvest time, gather in, bounties are scarce in the depths of sin. Bounties scarce in the depths of sin. Whenever I sing, you're welcome, dear, very welcome. Whenever I sing that last line, I always hear Perry Baggs, those great harmonies that are on that song. Speaking of Perry Baggs, I'm going to do a song, another Scorchers song that once again changed the trajectory of the band. Up until the Lost and Found record, the second record, I had been writing almost all the songs. But in '83 and '84, Perry Baggs, our drummer, very talented human being. He's an amazing music guy. And we didn't really know it yet at that time. We just thought he was just crazy. He was the youngest man in the band. When he first went out, we had trouble getting him into the clubs in some cases. He was under 18. But he eventually found out, I mean, he was a fabulous harmony singer, one of the best harmony singers ever that come out of Nashville. Great guitar player, bass player, trumpet player, piano player. And drums is almost a second instrument. But one day he came in and said, man, I got some songs I want to play for you guys. And the first one was White Lies. And it was, whoa. All of a sudden we realized, that was, anybody could have heard that song and said that's a really great song. And we built the Lost and Found record around that song. It was the first video and the first single. It started really making some noise for us around the world. But we had no idea until Perry just brought it to us that day. And Warner Hodges, of course, the guitar player, unparalleled in the world of country rock. But I will say this, that he played what Perry told him to do on that record. Perry showed him that very difficult guitar part, and Warner played it just like Perry said. That's what happened. For years after I went solo in the late 90s, I wouldn't play White Lies. I wanted to, but I just couldn't hear it without the crazy band, and I couldn't play that guitar part to save my life. But Perry sat down with me. He kind of simplified it a little bit and showed me a way to get around some of those parts. So now I really enjoy singing it, especially in honor of Perry Armenbags. And by the way, if any of you want to try to sing those high Perry harmonies, I'll welcome that. I'm not going to cut you in on the take though tonight. So. Every evening when I walk through the door, I get the same old lies that I've heard before. Going out for the evening, going out with a friend. Do you really want me to believe that again? We're telling white lies, we're telling white lies. See right through that thin disguise. I can tell when you're telling white lies. Take these chains and set me free. Release me from this misery. Don't waste your time with your alibi. Your heart can't hide what I see in those eyes. You're telling white lies. You're telling white lies. I can see right through that thin disguise. Can't you tell? I can tell when you're telling white lies. Every evening when I walk through the door, I got the same old lies that I heard before. Going out for the evening, going out with a friend. Do you really want me to believe that again? You're telling white lies, you're telling white lies. I can see right through that thin disguise. Can't you tell? I can tell when you're telling white lies. You're telling white lies. Telling white lies. I can see right through that thin disguise. Can't you tell? I can tell. Telling white lies. White lies. White lies. White lies. Woo! Thank you. All right. Always a challenge on that one, folks. I'm telling you. Wow. All right. Let's see. Like the boots. Those came from Spain, actually. I was in Spain doing a tour, in, I think, 2003. And I blew out my boots. I mean, I was on one of those kick things I was just doing. The soles came completely off it. And, I mean, there was like nails sticking out and stuff of the heels, and this part had just completely fallen off, so my little toes were sticking out. This is at the show, during the show. And a Spanish gentleman came up, and he couldn't speak any English. And he just handed me these beautiful boots. And, gracias, and that's all I knew what to say. He gave it to me on the spot, and he was barefoot. And going to do another Perry Baggs song, I think. This jumps ahead to the early 90s. We had broken up for a while in 89 to 92, and we reformed like all bands do eventually. And it was a really difficult time personally for all of us, that 92, 93 period. Jeff and Warner had sobered up. They had a lot of demons, and they were in the process of beating those demons, but at the beginning it was really rough. Perry was dealing with a whole lot of health issues with his diabetes that would eventually take him. And I was going through a terrible, unwanted divorce. So it was a really difficult time. One of the ways that Jeff and Warner could cope with being on the road and being around alcohol again was they would drive alone in their own cars. So that meant me and Perry were usually together driving a rental car. And one night we were driving from Texas to Little Rock, Arkansas, Dallas, Texas to Little Rock, Arkansas. It was an overnight drive, and after a show. Perry was a night owl, so I usually took the first shift after the show on these overnight drives, which are anathema to all musicians. We all hate overnight drives. And then Perry would take the second one. So anyway, I did the first shift. We stopped at a gas station to get stuff, and he was going to take over. And I climbed in the back seat. Into the back seat, I was laying down. Perry was climbing in the front seat to drive. And all of a sudden, I heard Perry screaming. And this gigantic Texan, he had the hat and the big belt buckle, and I mean, his arms were as big as my whole body. This guy was a massive Texan. And he grabbed Perry with one hand and just ripped him out of the car and threw him on the ground with one hand, And I was, what, And then he opened up my door and he started grabbing for my legs. And I said, oh, man, what in the world? This is it. And then he yelled, he goes, y'all have trying to steal my car and now I'm going to kill you. We had got in the wrong car. Both of us had got in the wrong car. Oh, my gosh. So, luckily, in situations like that, I have a really effective way of coping with things. I completely just shut down. I was like, we're going to die. But Perry, he kept his wits about himself. And Perry was the friendliest guy in the world. Everybody loved Perry Baggs. He didn't have an enemy on this whole planet. And he just turned on that Perry Baggs charm and started talking this guy down, which was really miraculous given that probably in Texas, this guy could have killed us legally at that point, in 1992. He could have got away with it. And Perry just turned on that southern charm he had, and, he said, I see you have a Skynyrd shirt on. I'm a big fan of Leonard Skynyrd. And it started talking to him about Leonard Skynyrd. Perry hated Leonard Skynyrd. So we got in the car, and the guy, they were buddies after that. The guy apologized, and we gave him a CD and went on our way. Anyway, later that night, I went to sleep. And I was just sleeping there, and after a few hours of sleeping, I started hearing Perry sing a chorus. So I kind of woke up, and I was hearing this beautiful, beautiful chorus. I was wondering, it was a song that he'd heard. It kind of sounded like a gospel song that maybe he'd heard in his childhood or sang in his childhood. He used to sing in the church band, his church choir. And I asked him, he said, oh, no, I've got this great idea I'm writing right now. And I said, I want in on this. So he started writing this song on the spot, and this is what came out of that. The sun is sinking, all red and close. Your Your life is coming up like an overdose. The pain you're feeling, it runs so deep. It even dominates your dreams when you sleep. The life you had is crashing down, while all around the darkness settles in. Somewhere within, somewhere within, we all find a place to start over again. Somewhere within, somewhere within, salvation is waiting for you like a long lost friend. Now you're thinking that your race is run, and all you see are the mistakes that you've done. But on a cross upon a hill, he's waiting still to take that pain for you. Somewhere within, somewhere within, we all find a place to start over again. Somewhere within, somewhere within, salvation is waiting for you like a long lost friend. Prairie bags. All right, this is obviously, those of you who know me know I'm kind of a history nerd. So this is just an absolutely fantastic experience to be doing a show here in such a historic town. So many great stories. Most of you know them anyway about Bishop Hill, and it's just an incredible story. My favorite, though, is the first winter. I guess they didn't learn anything from the Pilgrims because they came over here without any provisions for the winter. And the leader of Jansen, he somehow sold to the congregants that if they just didn't eat, that would bring them closer to God. So he sold that idea, and it worked. You know. But this area it's so steeped in history, and one of my favorite periods of American history, of course, is the mid-19th century, around the American Civil War. And this whole area of Stark County, Barrow County, Henry County was absolutely, solidly pro-union. They voted overwhelmingly for Lincoln in both elections in 1860 and 1864. And when it came time when Lincoln called for the volunteers, there were so many volunteers from this part of the state, especially here in this area right here, that the enlistment officers couldn't handle the volume of people that were volunteering to go fight for the Union. And right here, of course, they mustered right here at the park. Most of them joined Company D of the Illinois 56th. Company D was, at the beginning, was all Swedish people from this area. The Jansenists, as well as just the local Swedish immigrants and farmers, all Swedish. The officers spoke Swedish. as they were ordering their men to charge. Now, I'm going to sing my favorite Civil War song of all, and this is a song that these men that came from around here undoubtedly sang as they marched into battle. The song is called The Battle Cry of Freedom. It was written in 1862 by a gentleman named George Frederick Root. He was a professional songwriter. And this was the low point of the war, of the Civil War for the Union. You know, Second Manassas had happened, and it looked like Second Bull Run, and it looked like the Union cause might collapse, and the Southerners would gain their independence, and the Union would be destroyed, and slavery would continue on the American continent. So Root put together this song, and it touched on the main themes at the time of preserving the Union and ending slavery, the institution of slavery. And he was so successful at it, the song just leaped out. In those days, the main way that people consumed music and bought music was through sheet music. That's how the songwriters and performers made their money. Battle Cry of Freedom, in the first 7 months of the war, of the release of the manuscript, sold 700,000 copies. 700,000 copies. They had 14 printing presses running around the clock 7 days a week to keep up with the demand. They still couldn't keep up with the demand. I can guarantee you that every single parlor in Bishop Hill and in Cambridge and Kewanee and in Sheffield and Princeton and Geneseo and Atkinson and Anawan, I can guarantee that they had that sheet music, and they were singing it every night in honor of their boys that were out fighting. And every time they made a march to fight those rebel guns, they sang this song, marching to their death. So I just have to sing that song here, this song here. Is this thing working? Is it guitar working? That's too bad. Because I don't play this one very well. Yeah, sing along if you like. Seriously, you know. I'm really enjoying that y'all are listening and whatnot. But if you join in, it makes it even better. So. Yes, we'll rally around the flag, boys, rally once again. Wrong capo position. All right, there we go. Yes, we'll rally around the flag, boys, rally once again. Shout in the battle cry of freedom. We will rally from the hillside, we'll gather from the plain. Shout in the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah. Down with the traitors and up with the stars while we rally round the flag, boys, rally once again. Shout in the battle cry of freedom. We are springing to the call from the east and from the west. Shout in the battle cry of freedom, and we'll hurl the rebel crew from this land we love the best. Shout in the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah. Down with the traitors and up with the stars while we rally around the flag, boys, rally once again. Shout in the battle cry of freedom. We are springing to the call with 1,000,000 freemen more. Shout in the battle cry of freedom, and we'll fill our vacant ranks with our brothers gone before. Shout in the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah. Down with the traitors and up with the stars while we rally around the flag, boys, rally once again. shouting the battle cry of freedom. The last verse, it's just perfect. Every word. We will welcome to our numbers the loyal, true, and brave, shout in the battle cry of freedom. And although he may be poor, not a man shall be a slave, shout in the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah! Down with the traitors and up with the stars, while we rally around the flag, boys, rally once again, shout in the battle cry of freedom. We're shouting the battle cry of freedom, shouting the battle cry of freedom. I'd like to dedicate that song to all the veterans that are here tonight. And if you don't mind, any of you veterans, can you all please stand up? Can you all stand up, please? I know there's several of you here. All right, give them a big hand, please. Bobby, all right. Jeff, right. John, thank you. Thank you for all you did. All right. Sticking in the local sort of theme here. I can get this out. Grab a drink of water real quick if you don't mind. How y'all like my shirt? Custom made for me. My motto has always been, you can't always sound good, but you can always look good. I am here in this part of the state. We're very near Galesburg, the home of my favorite poet, Carl Sandburg. He was my absolute favorite. I would like to say before we go on here that I've lived in Nashville for the last 40 years of my life, and I've raised my family there, make a living there, make my music there. But I never left this area. You know, I didn't leave here. I went somewhere else to do what I do, but a big part of my heart is right here in this part of Illinois, and it always will be. I always miss it when I'm not here. So this poem here by Mr. Sandburg is very appropriate for this time of year in the middle of the winter. It's called Illinois Farmer. Bury this old Illinois farmer with respect. He slept the Illinois nights of his life after days of hard work in the Illinois cornfields. Now, though, he goes on the long sleep. The wind he listened to in the corn silk and tassels, the wind that combed his red beard, 0 mornings when the snow lay frozen in white on the yellow ears and the bushel basket in the corn crib. The same wind now blows over the place where his hands must surely dream of Illinois corn. Oh, lonesome prairie, I think it's time to go and see you and free my mind. Those fields of green are calling me. Oh, lonesome prairie, eternally. Oh, lonesome prairie, I miss you still. The wind and the lightning, all heaven's will. My memory all starts with you. Oh, lonesome prairie, those fields of truth. Oh, lonesome prairie, the meadow lark, the wind in the wires, those moonlit walks. To see you now would rest my soul better than all Fort Knox's gold. Oh, lonesome prairie, where I was born, my mother's father, he built this farm. I long to stand upon your soil, where the winters kill and the summers boil. Oh, lonesome prairie, those tall red barns, those Gothic houses, those ancient farms, I hold you deep inside of me. Oh, lonesome prairie, eternally. In 2017, I was a really interesting time in my career because I thought my career was over. I'd had a good run doing some other stuff, but it just seemed like I didn't have the stuff to compete with the wave after wave of new artists that were coming out and doing really great music, and I didn't know that I had the creative power to compete or the audience big enough to support what I do. So I was just, I wasn't a martyr about it. I was happy with what I'd done, but I thought it was, it was done, and I was moving on to other things. But I got a call from the United States Forest Service, and this lady called me on the phone right out of the blue. How she got my number, I don't know. But she said, "We want you to be the artist in residence at the Sequoia National Park." And before she said the word park, I said yes. It sounded like a racket, folks. It was like, okay, we're going to put you up in a cabin, and we want you just to walk around. We want you just to enjoy the park and write some songs and do a few shows in the park as your children's music character and as your adult music. So, I mean, I've been in the music business at that point for 35 years, so I was like, okay, what's the catch here? That sounds way too good to be true. But so I asked the questions that a smart music guy is going to answer, an experienced guy. Okay, like these songs, then do you own these songs, or who owns these songs that I write when I'm your guest at the park? I said, no, you own the songs. Do whatever you want with them. Okay, all right. Do I have to perform naked? Everything was like right in line. So I got out to the park. I was going to be there for a month, and they had me in this cabin at about 8,000 feet in a place called Mineral King. And when I say cabin, I'm using that word. Don't think cabin in the sort of yuppie 2010 version. I mean, like, there wasn't power most of the time in the cabin. Running water was a hit or miss. It was cold always, and I shared the cabin with a lot of animals too. But it was magnificent. So I got to just hang out and write these songs and do these shows in the park. It was a life-changing experience. I wrote so many songs that became the last two records for me, Stand Tall and Rhinestoned. And one of them I wrote was, I was hanging around a place called the Crescent Meadow. It's a lovely part of the park, sort of this marshy meadow place, and it's surrounded by these magnificent sequoia trees, 2,000 years old, some of them, huge trees. And they had this little sign there. John Muir, the great naturalist, the great American naturalist, pretty much the father of American conservation, loved this part of the park. And Muir, if I may just share a few things about him before I continue here, was a magnificent human being. When he would go out hiking, he wouldn't go out for an afternoon. He'd go out for like 2 weeks hiking in the mountains. That in itself's a lot, but all he would carry with him when he went on these hikes was he had this loaf of hard bread, he had a knife, and a blanket, and that was it. That's all he would carry. And man, in the 1880s in the Sierra Nevada mountains, there were still grizzly bears. There was a few Native American tribes that wanted to kill white people up in those mountains. So and he never had any problem. He always came out of these experiences, unscathed, and just he'd write journals about it. But anyway, he loved this part of the park. And at the end of this sort of little sign about the Crescent Meadow, it said, "John Muir stood here." And right there, I'd already written a song or two that day, and I was like, oh, wow, John Muir stood here. You songwriters can hear that already, right? Muir and here, there's a soft rhyme right off the bat, and it conjures up all kinds of images in your head. So I on the spot, wrote this song here. John Muir stood here. In the 1890s, the West was all but won. Industry was finishing what settlers had begun. But there was a hearty soul, not afraid to say, let's save it for the public good and another day. John Muir stood here. John Muir stood here. Right where I'm standing, he could see it all crystal clear. John Muir stood here. John Muir stood here. And I'll say the Sequoia's gonna make the politicians hear. All the logger barons with their senators in tow salivate when figuring the board feet in the snow. But Muir would stand with steady hand for the public trust and save the old Sequoias from becoming old sawdust. John Muir stood here. John Muir stood here. Right where I'm standing, he could see it all crystal clear. John Muir stood here. John Muir stood here. Save the Sequoia's gonna make the politicians hear. Springtime in the mountains now, my mind is getting clean. Time to say goodbye to all the soul-killing machines. How I wish that I could thank the folks who saved this place. Century ago who stood upon this sacred place. John Muir stood here. John Muir stood here. Right where I'm standing, he could see it all crystal clear. John Muir stood here. John Muir stood here. And I'll say the Sequoia's gonna make the politicians hear. And I'll say the Sequoia's gonna make the politicians hear. Said I'll say Sequoias, but will the politicians hear? Hear it. Hear it. Oh yeah. Thank you, dear friends. All right, those of you budding musicians, let me give you a piece of advice right now. If you're going to do a two-set show, make the last song of that first set be really good. Give it your best. Because the last song of that set kind of sets up the rest of the night. Folks that didn't like, the first set might just filter off and leave. But if you get them with the last song, you have a chance to keep them folks around and, just to create a good vibe for the second set. So I'm going to give you the best I got now, folks. And before I do this, though, let me make a little announcement that tonight here in Bishop Hill, Illinois, at the Bishop Hill Commons, we're going to have a very special contest. The contest is called the Jason Ringenberg Most Obscure Jason Song Contest. I got to really get that better. How this works is that you'll think of any song I've ever sang my entire life. I have to have sang it at least one time, someplace. It could be at party at a college dorm room or at the classroom at Western High School. But I have to have sang it at least one time. All right. And the most obscure, the person who comes up with the most obscure song idea will get a prize in the second set, and I will try to sing that song, at least try a few lines of it if possible. So, and the song forms back there. My friend Johnny Morris is running the back there, and he'll point you in the right direction as to where you can sign up. And the prize is actually going to be really good tonight. Usually I give away a dozen chicken eggs for my chickens, but I've been out for a few days, and that would have been kind of rotten by now. So, but it's going to be a good prize, I promise. Well worth your time. So anyway, the last song of this set. There's no doubt in my mind right now. I'm absolutely 100% certain that the right song to do, and all my experience in music tells me this, needs to be one of the big Farmer Jason songs right now. That's right. For those of you who don't know, Farmer Jason is this alter ego I created in 2002, and I did it kind of as a lark. I had little daughters, and it kind of seemed a fun thing to do. But it actually took off, and it became the center of my career for like 15 years. I won an Emmy Award for the PBS videos I did. And I toured the whole world singing to 4-year-olds for 15 years. It was, tell me a better gig than that, Unless they don't like you, and then it's the worst gig you can possibly imagine. So I'm gonna do the big Farmer Jason hit now. And there is a moment of audience participation, so be ready for it. I'm not going to be obvious as to when it is. I'm going to really, really respect your intelligence that you'll know. So I got to get ready for this now. Okay, getting ready. I played most of my music in Nashville for the past 40 years, created my music there. It's a place of fabulous music creation. Some of the greatest songs ever written, people like Johnny Cash and Loretta Lynn and Roger Miller and Chris Christopherson, were written in Nashville, Tennessee. And that's where I come from. But none, my dear friends, here in Bishop Hill, Illinois, none better than this song you're going to hear right now. The tractor goes chug, chug, chug. Wum pum pa ba 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 wum pum pa, wum pum pa ba 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 wum pum pa, wum pum pa ba 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 wum pum pa, wum pum pa ba 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 wum pum pa. Tractor goes chug chug chug. The tractor goes chug chug chug. Driving down the road or plowing through the mud. The tractor goes chug chug chug. Oh, the tractor can work all day. Well, the tractor can work all day. It doesn't ever rest and it doesn't ever play. The tractor can work all day. Wum pum pa ba 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 wum pum pa, wum pum pa ba 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 wum pum pa, wum pum pa ba 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 wum pum pa. Wum pum pa ba 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 wum pum pa. The tractor, its name is John Deere. The tractor, its name is John Deere. Doesn't make a fuss and it doesn't carry on. The tractor, its name is John Deere. That was pathetic. I know we can do way better than that. I was really looking forward to this moment in the night. You got to do better than that. It's really, really simple. I yell John, y'all yell back, Deer, really loud. And be sure to put that little space between the John and the Deer. All right, here we go. I'll give you one more chance. The tractor, its name is John Deere. Tractor, its name is John Deere. Doesn't make a fuss and it doesn't carry on. The tractor, its name is John Deere. Perfect. Oh, the tractor goes chug, chug, chug. Oh, the tractor goes chug, chug, chug. Driving down the road or plowing through the mud. tractor goes chug, chug, chug. Thanks a lot, folks. Stick around. Take a short break. Be right back.